If the National Geographic was the magazine world's equivalent of a radio station for alternative and contemporary photography in the 80s and 90s, the photographers have always been her rock stars. Bad boys and a few girls pushing the boundaries of conventional wisdom, with some classic albums, influential singles, and more than a few hotel rooms trashed along the way. It was a brutal youth that laid much of the groundwork for more than a few to follow. And it seems like David Alan Harvey has always been a part of this scene, even when he isn't. His influence lingers and follows, a bass line that fills the room. He has always been a strong voice in the ensemble, but an even more powerful as an independent one. Like photography's version of Neil Young with a touch of Keith Richards, or at least the version of Keith Richards as imagined by the pirate Jack Sparrow. My mother always told me never trust a guy with 3 first names. Yet try to say the words David Alan Harvey and try not to smile. You can't. It's the thought of it, some memory or reaction that curls up and breaks, kissed by the spirit, if you will. This must be what it's like to be selected and captured in a Harvey photograph, because we are all subjects, willing or not, to be cast in his play. Some come willing, while others have to be placed under the spell of the fear. And through it all, David remains David in personality and vision, and regardless of the journey, and regardless of the destination, please welcome David Alan Harvey.
So let's start with a couple pictures from your childhood, and you have an interesting start.
I'm still in my childhood.
You're still in your childhood. That's right. Actually, I love you had in the installation, one of your wall panels said something to the extent of, "I'm a beach bum." I just admitted that anyway. But so let's go back to your real childhood.
Well, Evan, just go back just 1 second, because I think many people in the audience know the story, but many people probably do not. But I was making books from the time I was 14. I was the editor of the Harvey Herald, the family newspaper, and yeah, my brother and sister were the bird editor and the cartoon editor also existed, but I was the editor and the chief photographer. At the end of 1958, I wanted to make a really nice gift for my grandparents, and so I hand-lettered this. This was the inside cover of the book, Off for a Family Drive. And you can go ahead, Evan. Thanks. Sorry about that. Our family did this. We didn't have an ideal family, but I sort of wanted to make us an ideal family. And on Sunday, we would go off on a family drive.
And I was amazed that a 14-year-old was composing an image like this. At first, that you were choosing to make a picture of an actual moment, opening the car door, the frame within the frame of the child and your mother in the background, and shooting over the back of your father. Like, to do all of that is so instinctive, and so it just was amazing for
Well,
someone
by this time,
very
Kathy, I had a Leica 3F that I paid $195 for, $10 a week at a time, from my newspaper route money, right here in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And I had the Leica because by that time I was a hardcore photographer at 14. I was in it by 11 or 12. Lightning hit me one day and I knew that I wanted to be a photographer. So by this time I was already considered myself a serious photographer by 14. And I had been looking at magazines and books, and mostly magazines. And so that's how I decided. Somehow I knew that it would be the right thing to do to put one picture per page, center it, and write a caption under it. Yeah, my brother Gary was one of the only members of the family who was willing to be photographed. So I have maybe more pictures of him than anybody else. Somebody the other day said, "Harvey, this old stuff looks like you're trying to imitate Martin Parr or something." And I said, "But except, yeah, that's right, except that Martin Parr wasn't born yet when I took this picture." So, yeah, I was imitating him somehow. My father was traveling a lot, like a lot of dads do, and so my mother would end up really kind of raising the kids and mowing the lawn and other things. So, and my dad took us on fishing trips. So it was kind of a classic family situation. And I had an incredible appreciation for family. I'm a family man now. I mean, my blood family, who is fortunately here with me today, or a lot of them are, and our family was really close. And And I made them in my mind even more close than we may have been, if that can be understood. Because I had been isolated medically when I was 6. You know, if you take a 6-year-old kid and you put him in a room for 3 months and nobody else is in there and you're locked in there, solitary confinement, when you come out of that, you know, you're not going to be the same kid you were when you went in. And so it took me a long time to get over that. The disease was over. Everybody thought that was it. But the psychological things still haunt me to this day, of course, as it would anybody. And everybody out there's got a similar story. Everybody's got childhood trauma. But gratitude was one of the things that I came out with, and I've had to deal with a lot of other issues. And so my pictures tend to be joyful just because I was glad to be out of there. I think it's as simple as that. This picture I took when I was 18 years old, or 19, like the picture before it, when I was trying to be Cartier-Bresson. I was 18, 19, and I put pictures in an envelope, and that last picture was in the Museum of Modern Art, curated by Monter White. Wow. I saw a thing in Pop Photo, and I put a picture in an envelope, and it ended up on the walls of the Museum of Modern Art, which I never saw because I couldn't afford to go there. That's my grandmother. And so I, at first, tried to be Henri. That's who I wanted to be when I grew up. And then, you know, I think every artist copies somebody in the beginning, right? But then I got a grant from the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts in Richmond, Virginia, and I started shooting color then. I experimented with color, which led to a variety of projects, which led to National Geographic, which was a big part of my life. But like I tell my students now, you've got to go off and work, you know, show people what you can do with no funding whatsoever, which I still do also.
Yep. So a number of these photos, this batch coming up, are from your book, Divided Soul. Tell us about that.
Well, Divided Soul...
That's about 20 years of work, right?
Yeah, 20, 25 years worth of work. I got very interested in Iberia, in Spain and Portugal, and the migration into the Americas. And so it involves 4 cultures: the Portuguese, the Spanish, the Africans, because it was the Portuguese and the Spanish who first brought the Africans to Brazil, and then they migrated up into the Americas. And then, of course, the indigenous population as well. So it was those 4 cultures mixed. And Jose Camilo Sale, a very famous Spanish writer, I completely lifted the term divided soul from him in his book Travels in the Alqueria. And that became the baseline for the work, because he was talking about the conquistadores with God on their side and the military also on their side. And of course, I could see that that was happening with many cultures long after that and long before that, with justification for conquering, for example. And so I spent a lot of time in Bahia, in Brazil, in Mexico, in Cuba, and I put it all together in Divided Soul. Chris Boot, who is here today, got it published for me at Phaidon as a book finally.
Okay, great. So I was thinking, you know, with listening to some of the other talks, it's always a question of what the photographer is seeking. When you head out into the world, the thing that defines each of you is you're looking for something different. You know, when Alex Soth is out there, he's looking for the lonely guy. As he said, he's looking for longing. He's looking for people trying to connect with other people. He walks into, let's say, a moose lodge, and I think his heart beats faster when he sees that lonely guy in the corner. Or Larry Fink talked a lot, obviously, I mean, we look at his pictures, and it's quite the opposite. He, I think, is immediately drawn to a dense grouping of humanity. You know, his heart beats faster when he's at an Upper East Side cocktail party and there's 10 people in the frame and he has to make sense and order out of it. What are you looking for? I have my theory, but I want to hear you.
Well, I think maybe I'd rather hear your theory. I don't. I'm a little bit like both of those guys. There's a part of me that is like Alec, and I was listening to what he said. And there's another part of me, maybe a little more like Larry. I loved everything that he said. But no, I'm like most people, I'm a little bit of each of those things. And I don't know that I'm necessarily looking for something. I was listening to Alec intellectualize his approach to things, and Larry a little bit too. And I know for sure that when I'm photographing, I'm not thinking at all. Yep. Thinking is not what's happening.
It's so you fit that. You fit the description of the the full page and the blank mind.
No, listen, I read history, I study I'm very much interested in current events. I don't photograph current events, but I know about them. And I take pictures that look like this one, which has nothing to do with current events, but if I were to describe, like this picture. Catholic Church, the horse from Arabia into Spain, into Portugal, conquered the Americas, and the Africans that were brought as slaves, all in one picture.
Wow.
So there it is
Lot
as a
of
picture.
history. Yep.
But no, I've got all that stuff in my head, in my hard drive here, but when I'm actually photographing, I'm putting
It's
myself into
intuitive.
Cuba.
Yep.
But like when I'm in a situation like this where there's no editorial reason for this picture whatsoever, no, I'm not thinking 99% of the time when I'm actually shooting. It's just I'm in the zone. Something is happening that I can't even really describe. It's an incredible experience to have that. And it probably is the thing that keeps me going more than anything. Certainly more than stage talks. No, I'm touching people sometimes when I photograph. I'm literally physically touching this family. They invited me over every day in Trinidad, Cuba, where Cortez launched, where the Catholic Church was, and so I'm getting very, very close to people, and then sometimes I'm back and distant, because both of those things are.
I saw a quote from you at something when I was reading about you, where you said something like, when I'm within 15 inches of somebody, something happens. Like that you always have to be in there, that the sparks start to fly. If you're right in there, literally bodily. Again, it was interesting this week that's been discussed, like with Larry, like muscular, bodily, physical presence in the world
stuff.
as much as a theoretical visual.
This is not the KKK, by the way. This is a Catholic confraria in Sevilla in Spain. It looks like one thing. It's actually something else. This is a part of me too. I mean, this is a rave in Spain at 5 o'clock in the morning. I went to take this picture. I figured I could shoot this. I found out about it. I figured I could do it in 2 days, and 3 weeks later, I got out of there on National Geographic expense account. Statute of limitations must be up by now, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, so I get involved in...
Nothing leaves the Paramount.
Okay, yeah, right.
Stays here.
No, so the symbols, I wrote everything down on a piece of paper. Blood, Catholicism, passion, military, all the key, what we call keywords now, and I just wrote it on a scrap piece of paper, put them up here, and so that I would see things that would relate to those keywords, but I'm never working off of a shot list.
And it's interesting because I think part of it is the architecture of your work, the sort of structural basis is that. So you read a lot about the history, you have certain signifiers you're looking for, you have a tale to tell, whether it's the history of the Americas. But I think often, sometimes, it's all an excuse for you to find the most perfect red, the most vivid pink, the crazy collision of a certain kind of teal blue with a certain kind of red or a certain sort of sapphire. And I love that, like that you've managed to, you're going simultaneously all the time down both tracks, what I think of as just the pure visual sensualist track, let's say what the Impressionists were after. So, you know,
well,
when Seurat was
the French Impressionists were my single biggest influence.
And you can
after Jules Verne and Mark Twain and Hemingway and all the people that I read when I was a kid.
You can see it because you're there in the world and you're looking for these crazy collisions of color that somehow make sense
where absolutely nothing's
in your
going
hands. Like with your eye and your framing, you're making sense of the world through that, because it's always about seeking chaos and then making sense of it in your own way and making order out of it. But I love that you've managed to team that up, a pure, formal, abstract pursuit of the most perfect red or green or yellow, and
I'm definitely not thinking about any of that stuff when I'm doing it. No, it's interesting. No, do you see that? No, what I'm thinking about, to tell you the truth, is the incredible difficulty, hardcore black and white photographer from 12 all the way to 25, I think, when I got that fellowship at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. Color, I always have looked at color as an incredible struggle, and I still think of myself as a black and white photographer. You know, the colors are there, but Martin Parr shoots lots of different colors at the same time.
Yep.
You know, almost all of my pictures are monochromatic. They're there's very few pictures with lots of color in the same picture. See, that's monochromatic. Almost every one you're going to see is.
I think there are a little bit of everything. There's the monochromatic, but you also have some where there's incredible juxtaposition of 2 or 3 colors you wouldn't expect to find.
Yeah, I
in a
find
frame.
color really, really hard. And when people describe me as a color photographer, I'm always a little bit surprised by that because for me it's so hard. Well, it was really hard because I was like all my colleagues of my generation. We were shooting color transparencies where you had to be absolutely right on.
Yep.
There was no Photoshop, so all of these pictures, ones you're looking at right now, are on film, and you had to be right on it.
Yeah, you're
And
right
so I
on
was
to
very
catch
glad that I was classically trained as a black and white photographer. My color pictures are a result of Ansel Adams' zone system.
Wow.
No, really, I'm a zone system guy. My digital files don't need any work either. I mean, I probably should loosen up a little bit, but I can't. I kind of have to get it right in the camera. I can't help it at this point.
You're also unusual in that you pivot back and forth. I mean, most of your work is color over the years, but you've also had a couple, as and we'll see later, and of course it's present in your exhibition, incredible black and white work, and that's a little unusual. Often when
Yeah.
people choose to go heavily into black and white, when they reach that certain kind of moment in their career when they're totally
I don't have
in
any- I
command
don't have
of what
any
they're doing, they
conflict.
stay with it, but you're able to sort of segue back and forth. And again, I think part of it is compositionally, your eye was there from the time you were 14, what you were doing, and then your desire, something in who you are, seeks out those reds and greens.
Yeah, I guess so. It's funny because I did a project on American Family, which I dropped to do based on a true story, which we'll talk about. But at one point, I was shooting ISO 400 Tri-X and Kodak portrait film with the Mamiya 7, and in my camera bag were both films, and I would randomly grab one or the other. I would randomly grab black and
Really?
white, randomly grab color. Because I was doing a family album, everybody's refrigerator door family album was a combination of black and white and color.
Oh, so
And so I didn't know whether I was shooting Tri-X or color.
that's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm not.
So that really is
Yeah,
proof of what
yeah.
you're saying, that
Well,
when
I'm-
you're making these pictures,
When I'm
it's the
shooting
same.
black and white, I'm thinking the same thing. If I were shooting this picture in black and white, I'd be thinking exactly the same stuff that I'm thinking about as a color picture. Now, technically, I've learned how to do it as a color photographer. This was a story that got commissioned by the Geographic and then was later published by powerHouse on hip hop. And no, I shoot the same either way. I mean, the light has got to be good for me in black and white, and the light's got to be good for me in color. And it's the same light for me.
Tell us a little bit about like your sort of working process when you're with people. You've mentioned often that you know most of the people that you're photographing. When you go on these projects, you get to
Yeah.
know the people that you're hanging out with. You go in depth. Talk about that
Well,
a bit. You're
yeah,
not in there just
because
observing.
I can't. People do see me in an extroverted way, and I've had discussions with my family about this. But I feel like a complete introvert. I'm really afraid. No, like connecting with large groups of people, which I seem to be able to do okay. It's actually my worst nightmare. Going up to strangers and photographing them is my worst nightmare today. No, I photographed my family at home that you saw in black and white, right? And there are people in the room who've been with me on assignment, and they'll tell you that's true. I will build a little family around me all the time. Tell it like it is as who's coming in. That was a family. My family, I will build the family every time. And Candy here was my digital assistant in Rio, and then she became a muse model, whatever, for the based on a true story book. I would say 90% of the pictures that I take, I've made friends with the people somehow. It could be a 5-minute thing. Some stuff is random on the street, a la Cartier-Bresson, but I had to break away from him. I had to break away from only from black and white, because he did black and white, and I had to break away from the fact that he didn't know anybody.
Yeah. You said
he
he
didn't
never
hang out at bars and
he
go in
didn't go
people's
in people's
houses or anything
houses,
like
right?
that. No,
He didn't
he
do
was
it.
out on the street. I admired him because he was able to make something out of nothing. He and Robert Frank were able. They didn't need anything else. They didn't need a war or a famous person or anything going on other than just walk out here on the street and make a great picture. And I love that about those guys. But then again, I had to break away. I went into color, and then I did the incredible sin for those guys, which was to photograph people you know. I'm sure it's a sin for some people out here too, but I'm too shy to meet too many strangers. I mean, no, in New York. Well,
quite.
no, seriously. In New York, I don't go out. People come over to my house. I'm sociable with my friends who come over and drink all my beer and whatever. But I don't go out to bars, and I'm not looking for social life ever,
Well,
unless
because-
it's happening in my living room. Same in the Outer Banks. So based on a true story has, people that I know in there, and that's why I didn't call it a book. National Geographic ran Rio as a straight documentary story. And when I did based on a true story, or I say my son Bryan and I did based on a true story, basically, no, I didn't want people to get confused by that concept. It's all documentary, but I'm very often photographing people I know. But they're still real people, just like people that I don't know.
So, based on a true story, all done in Rio,
Yeah.
over what period of time?
Well, I shot, let's see, it was all part of Divided Soul, actually. I mean, I did the Divided Soul book, but I'm still interested in South America.
And why did you choose Rio for that? Like, why
Rio's
do you
a
always go
Shakespearean
back?
stage. I mean, the physicality of Rio. I mean, the way it's shaped, the mountains, the sea, it's a beautiful place. I think any photographer likes Rio. I mean, it's sensuous, it's fun, the music, the beat, the people, the Brazilians are great. So there's every reason to be in Rio. And I sold the Geographic on a documentary on Rio, and I shot it for them. And then after that, I did my own thing, so to speak, but it wasn't detached from their thing. If you go through here, you're going to find pictures that were in National Geographic, right? And then you're going to find pictures that Geographic might not publish because, I used a muse, and with Bryan, putting the book together as a novella, because Bryan does know me better than I know myself, and was able to structure it like a novella. Now, it always takes a lot of people for somebody like me to sit up here and show their pictures. It's not just me. I mean, based on a true story, Diego and Ava on production. There's a lot of people behind me propping me up and making me look good. But I do actually take the pictures all by myself. Everything else is the result of somebody else. But Bryan took the...
But tell us about the layout, because this
Well,
is
that's
a
what
revolutionary approach to a way to present
It
the
is.
photos in a book.
Well, Ava showed me an unbound book. An unbound book was not a new idea, but she showed, and I was very nervous about that idea.
Okay.
And she convinced me that maybe I should try it. And I thought, it's going to be. She made a little dummy, and I said, I don't know if I can do that or not, but yeah, maybe I'm going to do that. And then Bryan got a hold of it, and it wasn't just that two pictures could be together. He made like a Rubik's Cube thing. I mean, he's weeks, in my New York apartment, and I kind of helped a little bit. Candy, the girl with the beach ball, she was finding pictures. She's the one that found the blowjob picture. Yeah, no, really. I mean, she went through every frame that I shot. And so again, it was 2 years off and on for National Geographic, and then another with the Muses. I shot heavy for a month, but I just photographed. I took the people that I knew.
Yep.
Nan Golden and Sophia Coppola are my mentors on that. I don't know either one of them. I know The Ballad of Sexual Dependency, and I know Lost in Translation, and I took what those women did, and
It's interesting.
yeah,
I see it.
oh yeah.
I see it. You could see
Cartier-Bresson doesn't influence me at all the way I work now, not even slightly. No, it's those women and others.
Well, it seems like the heat in Nan's pictures,
What's that?
the heat
The
in her
fact,
pictures,
well,
there's like
Nan
a high
photographed
temperature to them.
whoever was hanging around her apartment.
Yep.
And
Yep.
as a journalist, I wasn't supposed to do that. When I left National Geographic on good terms, I love National Geographic, gave me a good world view. Joined Magnum. I just started looking at things a little bit differently. And now I don't feel associated with anybody, not National Geographic, not Magnum. I love both groups, but now I'm like really back where I was when I was a kid.
Wow.
I survived adulthood.
And just still.
It is a survival. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm loving the being able to work independently. I'm loving looking at the work of lots of other photographers because believe me, I get really tired of myself. And you and I met teaching, at Eddie Adams' workshop. So I spent a lot of time mentoring young photographers, which
No,
I've
it's
done
so
since
great.
I was a young photographer.
Yep, it's great that you share so much of that. But I think that I just wanted for a minute more to talk about this because in case not everyone knows, in this book, when I first started to look at it, I was like thinking, oh my goodness, he's like totally doing all these verticals because everything looked so beautiful
By that way.
this way, only to then realize after kind of paging through the book that all of these are half a picture. So David decided to take all of his wonderfully composed images and essentially cut them in half and make them diptychs when you view the book this way. And I think it's important
But you can
because I
take
think
it apart.
It actually speaks to what you're looking for in the world, which is
I think
these
so.
crazy juxtapositions of color. And then if you take it apart, you can get the full image because
Well,
if you basically, I just love it because I feel like it took guts to do it. It took a
It did-
certain
it
kind
did-
of guts.
it took
so
guts
for
and,
example, the full picture is there each time, but the book itself becomes half a picture, half a picture, half a picture, and they make sense. They visually hang together. So you do think more like a painter.
Well, the
You really are
unbound-
like George Seurat lining up the dots and
George
trying
Seurat,
to get them
well, he was
to
one of
bounce
the
off
point,
each
the whole
other.
pointillism thing and Cubism, a lot of things, and the Impressionists all influenced me. But when Bryan came up with the map, we knew. Listen, the unbound thing. We knew that if it was unbound, it would be analog interactive. That's candy. That's one frame. Just
You
hold
may
there,
want to
Evan,
talk
for-
about that frame.
Go back a second. Well, she's not here to talk about
okay.
that frame. That was her idea, not mine. Even if that was my idea, you think I'm going to ask somebody to do that? No. I recognize a good imagination. That was all her, and literally one picture. The contact sheet's in the book. But the cool thing is the map that Bryan made, that we knew people would take it apart like you just did, and this is a way to put it back together again so you can see the story.
Because you had mentioned you like people to take it apart and rearrange it as they see it, but you
And
really
wait,
want them to go
you
back
won't-
to your
guess
way
what?
because it's
you
the
won't
right
be able
way.
to do it. No, there's thousands of combinations. There's 66, 66 pictures like that. I forget how many thousands of combinations there are. I doubt that you could get it back any better than the way he did it. And that really is Bryan. That's not me. Well, he's a filmmaker, great film editor. So
This made me think a little bit of Koyaanisqatsi.
no, a lot of people deserve credit for different parts of it.
Sure.
But people give me credit for this book. But Martin Parr put this book in his book of books, volume 3, and gave Bryan credit for the design, which was properly bestowed, in my opinion. This is recent. This is all really recent stuff. We were in a house of prostitution, a transvestite house of prostitution. And I don't know what light Dan had on there, but he gave me a little light on that. So this is a new book. I'm doing the same thing. Listen, I did Cuba, and then I did Divided Soul, and now I'm doing Based on a True Story, which is all color, but I'm doing a new book called Beach Games. It's all black and white.
Wow, all black and white.
And, you're not supposed to you can't do the sequel. So it's got to be something, I can't do this again. But I guess I'm allowed to work in Rio again, and I'll do it in black and white. And none of the pictures in Beach Games can look like they belong in this book, I think, in my opinion. And anyway, we'll see what happens.
It's great to have two bodies of work that way, all
Right.
from the same sort of subject. This one, tell us a little bit, because this also
Well,
has to do with you moving
Yeah,
less
this was
journalism, more
after,
fiction,
this
right?
was in post-National Geographic days, obviously. But this is also pretty recent, 2 or 3 years old, I guess. But Magnum was doing a portfolio for Sotheby's. And they said, Harvey, we don't even believe what we're about to say, but you're the only Magnum photographer who's never photographed any nudes. And it was true. I photographed a lot of women, but they were always, it was always about the eyes and the gesture. I knew from drawing class it was really hard to do a nude, and I was too shy to ever ask anybody about it, and didn't even want to do it. I liked the more possibility rather than, it all there. And I didn't know how to do it anyway. Anyway, I didn't have any nudes, and then my...
And I think you also are drawn to the bright pink dress or the red.
bright
Like,
pink
again,
dress
there's
and the
something
eyes,
else.
yeah,
You
the
don't talk
gesture.
about it, but
yeah,
the color
that
is...
maybe something could happen.
some
I always
other
like
thing
that
there.
maybe something can happen moment. And not that it already happened or is for sure. Maybe. Well, that's just what But in any case, and then Michelle and Susan Welchman and my other Jody, my female friend said, Harvey, we're not going to, Magnum wants you to shoot a nude, but we're not going to let you go to Brazil or Cuba. And we can see it already what this picture is going to be. We're not going to let you do that. You have to shoot a male nude. And and once the women in my life tell me I got to do something, I got to do it. Right? And I was like panic-stricken. Candy, this is the same girl with the beach ball, same girl on the cover. She's still my assistant in New York at the time. And she calls around NYU and gets a male model, and we're up on my roof in New York, in the kibbutz, and I'm up there with this guy, and I'm trying to think Roman sculpture, Greek sculpture. I'm trying to come up with everything. And the guy, he's got a fantastic body, and he's making all these poses, and I know I cannot publish these pictures, and I'm embarrassed to be taking the pictures anyway, but I was just doing it. I saw a storm coming in over LaGuardia Airport and back, and Candy was up there, looking bored, which she could do. And I said, Candy, that white dress that you had in Rio, would you please go put that white dress on? Because I see a storm coming, and maybe we can do something. I said, if I have you in the picture, I can shoot this guy. I can't shoot this guy by himself.
There you go.
No, it's true.
Because you are who
and
you are.
she said, David, I'm not going to go put on that dress. I said, Candy, and I could hardly ever make her do anything. I said, Candy, please, go put on the white dress. So Candy reluctantly goes and put on the white dress. Then she got into it. I smoked a joint with the black nude dude, right? We smoked a joint with the black nude dude. Right. Well, it's my rooftop in New York. It's like, come on. Half of the audience has been there with me. Okay. And Candy finds the rocking horse for kids, the pink horse, and it just all came together. The storm rolled up. I mean, that's just a straight shot.
And this is atypical for you in the sense that you
it's
usually
fiction.
It's fiction. You said
well, but I had
you
to
pulled
behave.
The elements.
Oh
together.
yeah, but the photojournalist side of me, react and move, was on. I said, and I told him, I said, hey, we're on it.
We're going to take advantage of this
and I had to move really. No, I had to work like a photojournalist.
Let's go to the next one.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. So.
Big jump.
Yeah. All the way back to the beginning of your career here.
Yeah, I'm 22 years old. Bryan, who designed based on a true story, is 5 months old. No money. I took the last $400 that the family had, basically, and went to live in the ghetto because Charlie Hoffheimer, who was a family friend, who may or may not be here today, I hope he is. Charlie had been working with agencies in Norfolk, Virginia, working for disadvantaged peoples. And he knew I was a fanatic photographer. There's Charlie in the back of that picture. There's Charlie. Charlie, you get cropped out in the book. But you're out of the book, but you're on the wall over at McGuffey, and you're up on the screen right now. Because Charlie was there, and he was an aspiring photographer too. But mostly, Charlie became an attorney, and he was very interested in, we were both into the civil rights movement. It was either the Vietnam War or the civil rights movement for people in our generation. He was going into the Peace Corps, and I wanted to do some good. I felt a little guilty being a white middle-class kid in Virginia Beach, to tell you the truth. And I left the fun of the beach, and I even left my 5-month-old son, Bryan, and wife, Sue, and moved into what we called the ghetto at the time. And the Liggins family, bless them, and Charles, put it together, and we created a little book that we were going to sell for $2 to provide food and clothing for the disadvantaged in Norfolk. Wow. It was going to the Norfolk Ministerial to the church. And the Liggins family, bless them, allowed me into their lives. And this was 48 years ago, and we just republished the book now. By the way, the profits, if there are any profits, after we pay all of our expenses, are going back to the Liggins family into a fund and to a scholarship fund that I'm setting up for minority photographers. I'll contribute what I can.
That's great.
And I hope that others will follow.
That's so great.
So, can we just hold on this picture just for a second? Yeah, I just, because I'm often, based on a true story, which we sold as a collector edition to people who could afford it. It was expensive, but it was worth it because it was in the art market. But then we gave 2,000 copies away for free in the favelas in Brazil. Same paper and everything. Roberta Tavares, who's here in the audience, she helped make that happen. So for 2 weeks, Candy, cover girl,
All right.
no, she went down, and Roberta, and we went into the favelas, and we went to schools, and we gave
Yep,
I signed
it's great.
copies for free.
It's great.
The
But-
same thing is happening with this.
Let's go back in time, though, because I think for a lot of people here, it would be interesting to hear from you what you were seeking as a photographer, 22 years old, right? Shooting in black and white film. What were you trying to say? What
I was
your-
trying to say that I felt that
Mission.
creating awareness in my neighborhood. I was in an all-white neighborhood. The only black people we saw in my neighborhood were the maids that everybody had a maid back then. Even lower middle-class people had a maid. And the only black people that I knew were maids, and I knew something was wrong with that. And so I left my hedonistic lifestyle at the beach because there's a hedonistic side to me.
Yep.
And
we know that.
but there's also, the devil and the angel. And, I come from a family where we try to look towards the angel side, the good side. And so I want to do something good. Charlie wanted to do something good. And so we were trying to do something good.
The pictures
That's
are
all,
wonderful.
only for that reason.
Now, we have someone else who...
Yeah, this is the little
Tell
surprise for
everyone
everybody.
about who's going to join us.
Lois, where are you? Come on out here, sweetheart. What'd you say? Sound it, darling.
That's me.
Come on over here. I found Lois right before Christmas, after 48 years.
Wow.
And because Charlie and I had both forgotten the family name, and the local newspaper that published the story at the time didn't publish their names, and we don't know why. We don't know why. None of us know why. The newspaper doesn't know why. But anyway, 48 years go by, and Charlie and I both forgot the Liggins family name, so the local newspaper helped us to find Lois and her family. And my other son, Aaron, who's also a filmmaker, filmed this whole reunion and search to find the family, because I knew I couldn't publish this book if I didn't find the family. I had to find out who they were and reconnect with them.
Sure. Lois, can you tell us what it was like to have him there? So your memories, it's great to hear from you in terms of what was that like? He was living there for several weeks, right?
He did. My mom really embraced David, and being that she did that, it allowed us, the 7 kids, to embrace him as well. Quite honestly, David was a part of the family. We treated him as family. He slept over quite a few nights on our sofa. One of the things I remember, David would come over, he would take us to the corner store and buy us treats. It really wasn't anything out of the norm for us. He just fit in. I don't know what more to say about that.
Well, thank you for allowing me. No, it was an incredible experience, because it was the first time that I had been outside of my own family. I mean, I'm in Virginia Beach. You're in Berkeley, right? 16 miles, but another world, right?
But another world.
Another
Yes.
world, and that I wanted to show people. And so it was, it was just nothing. I mean, we were having fun. You were particularly,
We did.
particularly, you were more up for having your picture taken than any of the other kids, I think. And you're in your mom. See, she's the same. Wait, I'm gonna take another picture now. Oh, I mean, nobody can't, you guys talk for, Kathy, ask her some, wait. Oh, no, 'cause it really doesn't get any better than this, right?
Oh, I love it.
Wait a minute, Lois, just wait, because I'll regret it if I don't do it. Wait a minute. Got my Instagram feed to worry about. Okay, thank you, darling.
I have to confess, that's why you're the photographer and I'm not. I brought my iPhone up to get the picture of you two hugging, and then I missed it. I didn't have it out of my pocket in time. Oh, well.
I have a question I would like to
Sure.
ask David.
Sure,
Okay.
please.
David, something I have often pondered about, what prompted you to do a re-edition of the book?
No, that's a really, really good question. And I knew that I had done something when I did it. But again, listen, I had more opportunities than you did. Obviously, I was a white middle-class family. But actually, technically, I was maybe even more poor than you were. Really, I had a new baby, wife in graduate school. I didn't have anything either. But I absolutely had more opportunity. And that was the whole point. Charlie and I both hoped that by doing this in the first place, that we would be able to give something back, the pay back, pay forward concept. He had the same idea.
And you did.
And I did, but I wasn't able to really get it out there. I went back to the University of Missouri grad school and lost contact with you guys. You guys didn't have a telephone.
No.
There was
couldn't
no
afford
texting.
one.
You and I text now, but we
Now
weren't
we do.
texting then, right? And there's the sofa, by the way. And so I wasn't able to do with any degree of power what I wanted to do with the book in the first place, and what Charlie wanted to do in the first place. And so now I thought this is the perfect time for me to do this. Those negatives have been moved dozens of times. It's a miracle they still existed. And I got them scanned, and I started to think about doing a layout, but I knew that I couldn't do it if I didn't find you guys first. I knew I couldn't just say, hey, this is a photo project you did, and I don't remember their last name. You got to be kidding. I only actually remembered your name and James' name, Junior.
My oldest brother.
Your oldest brother. And I couldn't remember anything else. Charlie couldn't remember anything else, and bless the Virginian pilot for helping to find you. But I thought now I would have an opportunity to do something significant, pay back, pay forward, like the original intent, only at least have the credibility to do it, actually make it happen this time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a little piece of history. It's a little piece of history, right, Darrell? I told you you weren't going to be nervous up here.